Hey everyone, and welcome to another Anime Week video. Better late than never on this last one, right? So today we are going to be talking about, well, let's just cut to the chase. You know what it is. Sailor Moon.
Fighting evil by moonlight, winning love by daylight, never running from a real fight. She is the one named Sailor Moon.
So Sailor Moon was created at the beginning of the 90s by Naoko Takeuchi. Um, it's basically the godmother of magical girl anime. Now, I believe magical girls actually existed before Sailor Moon, but Sailor Moon was definitely the one that popularized the genre and made it, well, known, made it a worldwide phenomenon. Um, so I watched Sailor Moon with my sister. Um, we She had the VHSs and stuff, and we would watch all these episodes. It was mainly just the Dark Kingdom arc, or the Negaverse, as the dub called it. um, and I had only seen like a tiny bit of anything beyond that at the time. Um, so we're mostly just going to be talking about the Dark Kingdom arc. So the story of Sailor Moon pretty simple. This young girl named Usagi Tsukino, who teenage girl, pretty ditzy, pretty goofy, pretty bad at a lot of things, especially school. she is she's just trying to get by, trying to be, typical teenage girl. Um, when she ends up meeting Luna, a magical talking cat who gives her a device that allows her to transform into Sailor Moon, a guardian of the Earth. So at that point, she ends up having to find and team up with the other Sailor Scouts in order to protect the Earth from just an assortment of evil villains and stuff, and eventually even go beyond the Earth and all of that. Um, so the gist of it is a magical girl series. These magical girl series tend to be pretty similar. Girl gets the power to transform into basically what counts as a superhero, has to fight the forces of evil to protect the Earth, the city, yada yada, and goes back to being normal whenever she's not fighting. It's pretty simple. There are some shows in more recent years that have kind of done some different things and added some things, but most Magical Girl series are the same, or at least very similar. Um, Now, Sailor Moon was an interesting series for me growing up because it's like, obviously, growing up assigned male at birth, I was told that it's like, oh, you should be watching like Dragon Ball Z and G.I. Joe and Transformers. And I watched all of those, mind you. I did. But I also watched Sailor Moon. I also watched Barbie. And it's like, that stuff appealed to me too. Um, Now, like I said, I did grow up with the original Viz dub, or I think it's Viz. Did Viz do the original dub? I think so. Yeah, I think it was. I think Viz was the original. Anyways, I grew up with the original Sailor Moon dub. Let's just call it that. Um, which had a lot more interesting choices made, other than changing a lot of the music. They also changed. They localized things. Let's put it that way. They localized names, like Usagi became Serena, for example, um, and so on and so forth. And they even changed a lot of the dialogue, a lot of various things here and there. And one of the big things that was notable about what they did with Sailor Moon, and this goes for Beyond the Dark Kingdom arc, the one of the most notable things that this dub did was changing Sailor Uranus and Neptune from lovers to cousins, which actually made things creepy. Because in the original, Sailor Neptune and Uranus are they're lesbians. They're lovers. They're together, and it's very obvious they're together. But the original dub, for some reason, made them cousins, but also didn't quite edit out enough, and they still were extremely affectionate toward each other to where it was still very creepy and very weird. Actually, even more so now that they were cousins. It's just it was weird. But they did other stuff like that too. There was a male character, Zoisite, who was changed to female for the dub because he was into another member of the bad guys. Zoisite was a bad guy. He had a thing with another male bad guy. So it's kind of funny. Naoko Takeuchi had these LGBT characters and representation in her series, and then the dub fucked that all up because American sensibilities and bullshit like that. Um, but going back to this arc, so this arc, the Dark Kingdom arc, specifically centers around Queen Beryl, the leader of the Dark Kingdom who had been trying to take over the moon in years and years and years past. She had been sealed away but had recently escaped and is working with her soldiers to try and, well, do what she couldn't do back then. So the Sailor Scouts have to fight her forces and eventually her. Now, I am most familiar with the dub just because it is what I grew up with and what I watched. I've seen a little bit of the sub, and I have seen that arc in Sailor Moon Crystal, the remake from 2014. But I am still most familiar with the original version from the dub of the original series. And like I said, there were a lot of things changed with that, but still. Um, my big thing with the series is that at the time, it felt like you didn't see stuff like this. And I think that's why it appealed to me and why, to a degree, stuff like that can still appeal to me. Because at the time, it's like you saw all these badass guys in cartoons and stuff. The ones I mentioned, for example, like Transformers and G.I. Joe and Dragon Ball Z. And it's like you saw all these badass guys in those fighting and kicking ass, but most of the time, the girl shows were the stuff more like Barbie, which is fine. That's all well and good, but it's like it was the country, the media, all of that trying to push this forced idea of gender roles, basically. You didn't see a lot of shows with kick ass female characters. And when you did, when there were kick ass female characters in these shows, they were relegated to side characters or background characters. They were never the focus. G.I. Joe had some kick ass female characters, but they were minor. All the major characters, all the ones you really knew, the ones you really like focused on, were the male characters. Like, let's be honest, the biggest name GI Joe characters are definitely Snake Eyes and the other ninja. I can never remember the name. I want to say it's something to do with shadows. I don't know, but the two ninja dudes, who are kind of rivals with each other, they're the biggest known ones for sure. Um, but the point is, you didn't see a lot of shows, if any, where the main cast was pretty much almost entirely female, with the male characters actually taking the side character kind of step, where they kicked ass, where they were strong and empowering, and at the same time could be girly and funny and ridiculous. It showed a more nuanced view of people. Even with the dub, which was really ridiculous and cheesy. Like, God, it was so fucking cheesy. Um, Plus, it had a shit ton of filler, but that's neither here nor there. Um, it was one of those things where it was just extremely beneficial. And the reason it's looked on so favorably now, the reason it's become such a worldwide phenomenon and is as huge and well known as it is because it changed the game, because it was that show that told girls they could be just as valuable, just as badass, just as important as guys in a world that was and even still is male dominated. That was important. And it revolutionized anime and cartoons. We started to see a lot more cartoons and anime that had a female focus, that weren't just Barbie, basically. And I know there was more than just Barbie, but that's just an example. Um, and again, it's not like this was the first show to do this, but it was the one that really stuck, the one that really caught everyone's attention. It's the one that became as big as it did. Because even other shows prior to this, like the original My Little Pony series, which, believe it or not, was not just all cute and cuddly, it was actually kind of badass at times. Watch Return to Midnight Castle, for example. That's actually really intense. um, but all the fans of that series focused on were the toys, basically. The cute toys, the cute ponies, the little girl who you could relate to, and all of that. That's what they were focusing on, rather than the mythical creatures, the world-ending threats, um, the smooths. People didn't focus on that. They focused on the cute ponies, on the toys, on the princess play sets or whatever the shit they had. Um, but Sailor Moon changed that. It may have not been the first show to really bring in those kind of elements of girls kicking ass and being valuable and everything, but it was the one that made people pay attention. And it changed the landscape for animation in such important ways. Um, Honestly, I would say without it, we would not have shows like the current reboot of She-Ra, which is phenomenal. And it's very clear it takes a lot of inspiration from stuff like Sailor Moon. I mean, yeah, it's a reboot of She-Ra, which came before Sailor Moon, but still, it's very clear that even that if Sailor Moon had never gotten as big as it did and never had changed the landscape of things, that we probably wouldn't have this show. That this reboot would have never been made. They would have never thought to make a reboot of a older 80s series like that into something like this. It's it's kind of insane to think about. But yeah, um, so there were a bunch of Sailor Scouts for the different planets and stuff there. My favorite was always Ami, or Sailor Mercury. Um, I just liked her kind of nerdy, dorky personality, how she was extremely nice and everything, compared to the others. Not that the others weren't nice. I mean, except for Ray. But yeah. Plus, I very heavily ship her with Makoto, Sailor Jupiter. Um, like very, very heavily. And it might partially be due to that entire dance between them, with dancing, because Makoto's tall, and I guess guys are intimidated by tall girls back then or something, so that was a thing that was put in. Um, but yeah, yeah. Either way, either way. Did just want to mention that beforehand. And of course, the dub also had the most epic conclusion to the Dark Kingdom possible. That was actually better than the original. just the music alone, and even the dialogue at that point wasn't as cheesy. But the music alone at that point, the music that they put in was better than the original. Like I've seen the original, and yeah, it doesn't stand up to the dub version of the final confrontation between Sailor Moon and Queen Beryl. The dub actually did exceptionally better, even despite changing so much. um, but yeah, yeah. Overall, Sailor Moon is one of those shows that I very much enjoyed growing up, and I have a lot of fondness for. Looking back on it now, it's like the series has a lot of problems, and it's not the best made. Um, and post Dark Kingdom arc, it just starts getting ridiculous and stupid, and over the top, and you know, all of that jazz. Um, but yeah, it's just like there is still a part of me that still very much loves Sailor Moon, and I'm glad that Sailor Moon Crystal has allowed a new generation of fans to get into the series as well, and in a more accurate way, mind you. Um, but either way, tell me in the comments below what you think of Sailor Moon, whether the original dub, the newer dub, because there was a second dub that was made, Sailor Moon Crystal, whichever, um, or if you're even a manga reader. Tell me your thoughts down in the comments below on Sailor Moon. And I want to say I am very sorry this took over a week longer to get to. Um, as you guys know, my camera had been dying when this was supposed to be uploaded originally, like over a week ago, week and a half ago. Um, Back on that Friday, my camera was having major issues. I got the new webcam since then, obviously, so I just didn't do it last week because of One Piece week. So I wanted to stick to that. But I wanted to also make sure that we did eventually get to this to finish out the Nostalgia Week videos. So sorry for it being a week and a half late, but at least we got to it, right? At least we got to it. At least we still get to finish things out because I would hate to just leave it unfinished, you know? Um, and so, yeah, thank you all so much for understanding and for continuing to support the channel and everything. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.